Good afternoon and welcome to this session on NEP 2020. NEP 2020 is a comprehensive document which needs to be understood and analyzed before its effective implementation. And our teachers are the most important link in this implementation process, and therefore they should be familiar with all the aspects of the recommendations of this document. Now, in this second phase of webinars, today we are being joined by teachers of Center for Excellence, Pune. They must have received a live streaming link for the same, and they will also receive a link for uh, uh, attempting the MCQs, and only after their attempt they will get the certificates. The link for those MCQs will remain open from 4 to 9 p.m. today. Our expert today is Dr. Excuse me, I'm so sorry, is Dr. Swarup Dutta, who's principal MSM School, Malkapur, Maharashtra. He is an experienced educator with administrative acumen of more than 20 years. He is the zonal coordinator and master trainer for Center of Excellence Pune. He has also created many modules for CBSE and Diksha portal and has trained school leaders and teachers in management and subject specific areas. Dr. Datta, you are welcome, and I invite you to start your session.
Thank you so much, ma'am. A hearty welcome to all the viewers. I can see Tarun Kumar sir on the screen, head of COE Pune. Namaskar. And all the teachers who are there on the live stream, I can see around 13,774 teachers already logged in. So today we are going to talk about the national policy of education. And I'm pretty sure that this is not the first session that most of you are attending. So what I'll basically do is I'll try to be as lucid and as simple as possible. We have already had a previous session for the principals where we discussed about the policy at length. But today I do understand that a lot of teachers are there and many are from pre-primary segment, primary segment. So this particular module, I will be covering in a way from the perspective of the teacher, what a teacher should be knowing about the national education policy. So before I start, just give me a few moments so that I can share my screen. All right, I think my screen is visible now to everyone.
Yes, sir.
Right, and those who are watching the YouTube, let me just tell you this, that this National Policy of Education 2020 was originally given to the former Cabinet Secretary, Sri T.S.R. Subramanian, who initially did the drafting of the policy, and then finally by the former ISRO Chief, Krishnaswamy Kasturinanganji, finally did the drafting and as a secretary of the chairperson of the committee. Now, before I move into this policy, let me just remind you a bit of the history. What are the different policies that led to this particular policy? So I would not go into detail of that because we have to cover around, a good 40, 45 slides in 1 hour's time. But I'll remind you, because you have done B.Ed and in this B.Ed programs, you have studied these different commissions. So let's start with reminding you the Radhakrishnan Commission, which was set up in 1948, which was known as the University Education Commission as well. It was followed by the Mudaliar Commission in 1952, and it was known as the Secondary Education Commission. Kothari Commission was formulated between 66 and 68. The first national policy of the country was published in 1968. The National Policy of Education, that was, for the second time, it was rolled out in 1986. So there was a huge gap between 1968 and 1986. The second policy of education was rolled out. And in between, we have had national curriculum frameworks to support the policy, which were rolled out in 1975, 1988, 2000. The latest NCF that we had was of 2005. And finally, we reach the third national education policy of the country, that is NEP 2020. Now, to understand the policy, before I go into the depth of the policy, let me first tell you that what are the factors that leads to an education policy. Now, if you consider our country, which has a very ancient history, the education system was much different in the earlier days. In the Vedic days, education was more in form of gurukulas, where these children used to go to the gurukulas under the gurus. They used to study, and they studied the four Vedas, Upanishads, and they were groomed into better human beings. And the target during those days of education was knowing oneself and salvation. So that was at the back of the mind. Now, as things progressed, it was divided into Varna specific education. For example, the Brahmins took up education related to Vedas and scriptures. The Kshatriyas took up education related to warfare. The Vaishyas were taught business, and the Shudras were taught, some sort of vocation and manual skills. This scenario existed for quite some time. After a few years, with the Gupta Empire coming in and the Buddhist thought process coming in inside the country, the education system was a little bit changed, and new education institutions like universities were set up. The Nalanda University was one such example, or is one such example. So during the Buddhist phase, we saw a transformation of the education system where it was decentralized. The Varnas were no longer learning their own skills. For example, an ironsmith need not learn the skill of ironsmith only. They were able to go into other forms of education as well. Then in the middle phase, with the invasion of the you know the Mughals, what happened is the education was again transformed a little bit with certain Islamic thought process of education. And during this phase, there was a development of the science and art that was linked with one another. Next, it was followed by the colonial empire. The British invaded India. And during that time, a lot of changes happened in the education sector. For example, the Persian language was taken a back seat, and English was introduced as a mode of communication. And finally, after independence, all these commissions that I talked about were set up. Now, why did I tell you the history of this particular thing? Because I wanted you to understand that the education policy of a country is designed or devised mainly because of two objectives. One is to create a society that is required, and the second is to have streams of vocation or profession that are required for that particular time. For example, during British Raj, there was a lot of requirement of educated English-speaking clerks. And during that time, the education policy was designed in a way that the English-speaking administrative helpers were produced. So, at the backdrop of this particular policy, you have to understand that huge change is happening globally. Now, whatever was happening till the 21st century is a part of the knowledge that is already there, existing. But what goes beyond that is what is going to happen 50 years from now. So if we are not prepared for the education that is going to come up, or the professions that are going to exist 50 years from now, then we do not have a reason to educate our children. What we are preparing our children for? We are preparing our children to face the future. So what the future holds is very important. So you need to understand that the future, the future holds an uncertainty in terms of what jobs will remain in India, in the world at large, and how many jobs will be replaced by machines. So with this thought that machines will be dominating, jobs will be replaced by machines, there are skill sets called 21st century skill sets that were designed. So you need to understand that entire policy has been designed with the first point, that is what professions wait for our children. And the second point is to create a society which is full of values and Indian ethos. So with that mindset, let's approach the policy. So the first thing that we need to understand is the vision of the policy. Now, when we talk about the vision of the policy, it's to develop an education system deeply rooted in Indian ethos, which has the capability to provide high quality education to compete in the global world. The curriculum and pedagogy must develop a sense of respect towards fundamental duties and Constitution of India and have a deep bond with the country. Develop a sense of pride and respect for the country and be responsible for human rights, sustainable development, global well being, thereby reflecting a truly global citizen. Now, as you see from the vision of the policy itself, Indianism is weaved into the thought process of the policy. We have been a country uh, which was rich not only in terms of you know finance but also in terms of culture, education, everything. We have seen a lot of scholars to the extent of Chanakya, Panini, Bhaskaracharya, Brahmagupta, Aryabhatta. All these were scholars of repute, and these are the scholars who were leaders in education in the early ages. So, with that mindset, we have to understand that India is a rich country as far as educational heritage and cultural heritage is concerned. And some way in between, because of different invasions, we have probably, or our next generation has probably forgotten the rich culture and the background that we have. So, this education policy is all set to put India on a pedestal of being a global leader once again. And let me just share this opinion of mine with you as well, that this COVID has probably given India an advantage as well to launch itself as a global leader, not only in education, but in every sector. So let's understand now what are the key principles of the NEP 2020. The first one is diversity and local, uh, you know, respect for diversity and local context in curriculum, pedagogy, and policy. So, first thing is India has always been a country of diversity. We have been divided into states based on the language and culture that we follow. And these multiple states, despite having so much differences, are united with only one thread that is common between all of us, that is, we are all Indians. So we need to understand and respect this diversity despite the different religions, the different languages, different dialects, and different cultures that we have. The second thing is, in this policy, we are talking about equity and inclusion, which is the cornerstone of SDG 4, that is sustainable global development. SDG 4 is the target is inclusion should be in the cornerstone of all the policies, including whom? Including everyone, starting from different socioeconomic segments of the society, different genders, and different people. So we need to understand that this policy talks about inclusion and equity, which is one of the key components of Sustainable Global Development Goal 4. The next is community participation, which is encouragement and facilitation for philanthropic and private community participation. Now, what does this mean? This means that we're going to see in a period of time that a lot of private organizations, which is going to be run by people with philanthropic mindset, that is charitable mindset, not for profit mindset, they are invited to come up and open private schools now. And the criterion for opening private schools will be relaxed as far as documentation and all the different procedures that are involved in getting a school a permission. So all these things are talked about, that it will be relaxed and more schools will be opening. Use of technology in teaching and learning, removing the language barriers. So technology, we cannot just turn our face away from technology in the 21st century. Technology is there in everything that we do. Even that the meeting that we are having right now is possible during this lockdown, and me sitting in some place of a Buldana district, and you people are all spread across in different districts of Maharashtra. We are able to communicate only because of the technology, right? And we know now that COVID-19 has given us that edge that we needed, that every teacher of the country is now technically sound, at least if not sound, technically literate, manageable. So technology will be there as a major thing to understand and learn, and it will also help the young students. Technology can help the blind or the visually impaired children to see, see in the sense it helps them to learn. The second thing is, even the child is auditorily challenged, not able to hear properly, technology allows that, to help those children as well. The children who are not able to walk, we have seen technology helps those children to walk with use of artificial limb. So technology is there everywhere, and it will help the Divyang students. So the students who were Divyang maybe 20 years ago, the scenario has changed, and we are all set to help them out and help them to lead a near normal life. The next is emphasize on conceptual understanding rather than rote learning and learning for exams. Now, we have been talking about this for quite some time. Since the beginning of the 21st century, we have been talking about that rote learning should, be done away with, and students should not be encouraged to memorize. They should be encouraged to go for conceptual learning. But as long as we kept asking questions in the examination based on, the bookish knowledge, this was simply not possible. It was a mere talk which was not implemented and could not be implemented by the children also, mainly because if they do not memorize, they were not able to do well in the examinations because the question paper was set based on rote learning. Now, this policy is talking about how to do away with rote learning from the roots. We are also talking about unique capability. Every child is born with the gift that God has given. So these unique capabilities that the child is born with, we need to recognize these gifts that each and every child has brought to the world. And based on these gifts, we can, guide the child to do something worthwhile in this world, to live not only a better life for himself, but a better life for all others as well. Help others to live better as well. Critical thinking and creativity to encourage logical decision making and innovation. So, if we talk about the 21st century skills, these skills are the skills that start with C: critical thinking, creativity, communication, collaboration. All these skills are 21st century skills, and unless and until a child learns the 21st century skills, he or she will not be able to, survive in the competitive market of 21st century. The next is continuous review based on sustained research and regular assessment by educational experts. Now, we are talking about continuous review of the assessment system, review of the children. The continuous review is needed to understand where we are heading to and what is the position right now. So, without reviewing the process over and over, improvement of the process is not possible. So this policy also talks about continuous review. Now I come to the slide that is most exciting, and probably each one of you have seen this picture earlier, but since it is there, that I need to mention, and I'll try to put some additional light on this particular 4 blocks that you're looking at. Now, the age-old 10+2 system is being dissolved with this particular policy. What does that mean? The junior college concept that was there so long, it's not going to exist anymore. There will be nothing called junior college. There's no such scheme called 10+2 anymore. So what is it giving? It is being replaced by. It is replaced by the 5+3+3+4 scheme. Now, what is this 5+3+3+4? The first 5 years of schooling is called the foundational stage. It comprises of the nursery, the KG1 or LKG, the KG2 or UKG, class 1 and class 2. So these are the classes which are, which comprise the foundational stage, the first 5 years of education. Now, you must be saying that, the pre-primary already existed, right? So what's new about it? The new about this thing is the pre-primary segment is now brought under the purview of mainframe schooling. So there will be specific rules and criterion that these preschools need to match. Earlier, these preschools used to exist in isolation. There was no governing body, no quality check. Now, with this policy, the preschool education will be, under the scanner, and specific criterion will be set so that the quality of these years is maintained properly. And why is the necessity for doing that? Because it is said that 85% of the human brain cumulative development happens by the time someone reaches 6 years. So, when a child is about to reach 6 years, 85% of his brain is already developed. And you can understand very well what I mean by telling that. That in our country, the first 6 years of life, many parents do not even think about education of their children. There are, socioeconomically disadvantaged groups who do not send to the child till the child reaches, let's say, 6 years or 7 years of age. Preschool education is not given to them. So this foundational stage is a very, very important stage, because here the brain, the linguistic and foundational skill development happens. The next 3 years, that is from class 3 to 5, is very important as well, which is the age group of 8 to 11. And here it's called the preparatory stage. The foundational stage will be marked by play and activity based learning, mainly because we are talking about the development of the child, the brain of the child, the nervous system, the motor system of the child. So the fine motor, the gross motor, the milestones of the child, when the child wants to learn to walk, when the child learn to talk, is the child able to hear properly, is the child able to mix with other friends properly. So all these milestones will be checked in the foundational stage. In the preparatory stage, the play activities will be slightly modified to adapt to interactive classroom learning as well. In the middle stage, which is from class 6 to 8, experiential learning in the sciences, mathematics, arts, and social science and humanities will be, you know, uh, will be thought of. And you are well aware that experiential learning is a very important module that we all have been asked to complete by CBSE. It's there in the Diksha portal. And it's also a module of CBSE Center of Excellence uh, of Learning. So I would strongly recommend every school should go for experiential learning modules so that they are well equipped how to handle these middle-aged or middle-class children between the age of 11 to 14 for class 6 to 8. And finally, the secondary stage. Now mark this, this is not being called a higher secondary stage, it's simply called a secondary stage. And the secondary stage comprises of uh, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And here, the greater critical thinking, multidisciplinary study, flexibility in choosing subjects will be given to the child. So what does that mean? It means there will be no strict demarcation between streams. Commerce, humanities, science will not exist as different streams. So intermingling of these streams will happen. So let's say I, as a student who loves physics, I can take physics as one of my subjects, and since I love accountancy as well, I can take as my second subject as accountancy, and probably music as my third subject. So there will be no strict categorization between the different streams, and also no categorization or strict demarcation between scholastic and co-scholastic subjects. So there will be nothing called co-scholastic or extracurricular. Everything will be scholastic, whether it's sports, whether it's music, everything will come under the purview of scholastic education. Now this question that the parents have been asking for quite some time, कि मेरा बच्चा तो बहुत अच्छा क्रिकेट खेलता है, लेकिन करेगा क्या बड़ा होके? Probably that is being answered over here. If the child enjoys playing cricket and sports, he can make a career out of sport. He can take up in higher education as well a subject relevant to his choice, that is sports, which was not the possibility in previous forms of education. So this is a big, big breakthrough, that the learner is at the center and deciding what to learn. So the choice of learning now goes and shifts from the university or the boards, which used to pronounce which are the subjects that the child should learn. It's shifted to the learner now, and the learner now decides what I want to learn as a learner. So that's a wonderful thing that's happening. Next, shift to competency-based teaching, learning, and assessment. Now, competency-based, what does that mean? Competency-based means simply not learning and mugging up from the books and vomiting on the examination sheets. Competency-based learning is testing how much the child is able to use the knowledge in practical sphere. Why should I use, or learn logarithm tables which I have not used in any of my work so far. It's not needed. So if logarithm table is not needed in the real professional world, the question is, why should I learn it? Now I'm just giving an example. This does not mean that logarithm table is not needed, but what I'm trying to say is that those topics which has lost its practical utility in today's world may not be taught to the child, and unnecessarily the volume of syllabi be increased. So you can see here the reduction of the curriculum is a goal. Why? Because we are not now going to teach and learn whatever is necessary in the 21st century and has a practical implication. Now, the competency based learning also involves the higher order thinking skills, that is application, analysis, evaluation, and creation. So this is a very important thing that you need to understand. So in Bloom's taxonomy, the schools who are not trained with Bloom's taxonomy as of now, I would strongly recommend learn Bloom's taxonomy and design question papers based on Bloom's taxonomy, where knowledge and understanding can now slowly take a back seat. It has been dominating for quite some time. Allow application, analysis, evaluation, and creation to come up. I'll give an example. How competency-based education can mean, or what does it mean. Let's say in earlier days, it was asked like this. If I was studying Mughal Empire, it was asked like this: talk about the religious reforms of Akbar. Now, if I have not studied in the book properly, and if I've not memorized it, I would not be able to say. But now we can say like this: compare the religious reforms of Aurangzeb and Akbar, and which one, according to you, is a better one? Now, there's no wrong answer to it. A child can say, I think Akbar's is a better one. A child can say, I think Aurangzeb's is a better one. So here, the evaluation of the child is tested. How the child is evaluating the knowledge that he has, right? So this type of evaluation questions, or let's say if the child is asked that put yourself as in the position of a ruler and think about if you have to discover a religion today, what that religion will be and what will be the rules of the religion, and name the religion and something like that, that will pronounce the creativity of the child. So the child will now think that if I had to design a religion, how I would design it. So the same Mughal Empire can be shifted from rote learning to evaluation and creation. Now, shifting the traditional assessment to competency focused, I already gave an example, and there are multiple examples. This was one example that I cited, but there can be multiple places where the child's hands-on activities, the child's evaluation, creation, analysis, all these things can be tested. Track students' progress comprehensively and frequently. So, it's almost like a driving test. So when you're driving, when you're learning to drive, the teacher also has the clutch and brake under the feet, and you are allowed to drive. Now the teacher progressively, when the driving is happening, the teacher at times presses the brake and instructs you that this is where you're going wrong. And at times the teacher, tells you to speed up. So the accelerator is under the feet of the student. So the pace at what the child will move depend on the student. The accelerator is there under the feet of the student, but the clutch and the brake is controlled by both the teacher and the student. So wherever it's required, they will pause, analyze, discuss, and move on. So this is a sort of formative assessment that is being promoted, not the year-end or term-end examination, which carries a lot of weightage. This is slowly going to go away, and tracking of the students as they learn is going to be dominating, or it will be practiced. Designing the tools and resources to acquire learning outcomes. So whatever it takes to drive the learning outcome into the children's head is what we need to do. The bookish knowledge, the curriculum, and all these things are there to support that child picks up the learning objectives. Now NCERT has very clearly pronounced the learning objectives at different levels. During the lockdown, every school, CBSE school, was instructed to have a printout of those learning objectives, give it to the teachers so that teaching and learning can happen through or using the learning objectives. So textbook is a reference material where it keeps the teacher and the student on the same page, but certainly it's not the only method of education. So education beyond books to the level of learning objectives, and whatever it takes to drive the learning objectives, if it is an activity, if it's a field visit, if it's an internship, if it's a different expert coming into the classroom and telling the child what to do, everything that requires to be done needs to be done so that the child learns the learning objective. We are also talking about promoting sports integrated and art integrated learning in the classroom for holistic development. So, the art integrated project, I think you're already doing it. Nothing more to say about this. And sports integration is also very important. Why? Because the brain develops, and brain is connected with all the nerves of the body. So when a muscle moves, when the hand moves, when the leg moves, your brain also develops. So you must have heard the proverb, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Now, why all work and no play? All work doesn't mean working physically. All work means only studying. So if a child is only studying and not playing, so what will happen? It will make Jack a dull boy. He will not learn. Why? Because the brain will not be properly developed. So the development of the brain is interrelated or interconnected with the development of the body. And if the body is well nourished, well fed, exercised, and sports plays a very important role in doing that. Apart from that, sports also develop certain sense of competitiveness, team spirit, which is a key component of the 21st century. Now, let me just pause for 5 to 10 seconds and check if it's going in properly. So I just don't want to be too fast so that you keep missing things that I'm telling. I'll just pause for 5 seconds now. Think about what we just talked. All right. Now we're going to talk about the salient features of stages in school. So let's talk about the first one, the foundational stage. Now here, as we understand, it's talking about the pre-primary, class 1 and 2. It's talking about play and activity-based learning. Here, the playing and activity will be dominating because we are talking about development of the gross motor, which is the movement of the bigger muscles, whether the child is able to run, whether the child is able to jump, move his hand, a big movement, the child is able to do that or not. And then the gross motor skill shifts to fine motor skill development. That is movement of smaller muscles of the fingers, the wrist. So it's advised, directly do not catch hold of the pen or the pencil. Make the child write something with the finger or with the hand on a sand pit, on the soil. Let the child hand something gross like alphabet blocks so that the child's motor senses develop and they understand how the formation of alphabet is happening. Similarly, when we talk about numbers, let the child understand what a number is, not by a figure like 1 or 2 written on the board. For a child, a 1 should mean like one apple or one ball, and 10 basically should mean 10 different balls or 10 leaves or 10 flowers, whatever it is. So that concept of 10 should be driven into the brain of the child concretely, not just in form of a written number, but what that number actually means physically. Apart from that, focus on good behavior, courtesy, ethics, personal and public hygiene, and cleanliness is to be kept in mind as well. Focus on teamwork and cooperation is developed from this age. Now, why I'm talking about cooperation and teamwork, because this is probably one of the things that is very, very important in the 21st century. If you see today, the entire professional world runs with the help of a teamwork. Individual brilliance is a thing of the past. In Test cricket, Brian Lara scores the highest run in the history of Test cricket, that is 400 runs, and West Indies still manages to lose the match. So what does it mean? That individually a player can be brilliant, but as long as the team is not winning, it means nothing. So focus on the teamwork and cooperation is so important. Next is the preparatory stage, which is grade 3, 4, and 5. So in this stage, the gradual transition from play-based learning to more formal classroom learning will take place, and interactive teaching learning will happen. Introduction of subjects, including physical education, art, language, science, and mathematics, will be done at this stage. And emphasis will be on the 3 important foundation literacy skills, that is reading, writing, speaking, and of course, arithmetic. So the 3 R's of education, the reading, writing, and arithmetic, is to be emphasized during this stage. The middle stage, class 6, 7, and 8. Here, the subject oriented pedagogical and curricular methodology is going to happen. So, the experiential learning that we are talking about needs to be given to the children specifically during this stage when they are moving to specialized subjects like sciences, mathematics, social science, humanities, and more of a discussion based learning is going to happen. Here, the child's natural inquisitiveness will help the child to learn. The first thing that we need to understand as a teacher when we are approaching the National Education Policy 2020, the one unlearning that if we have to do, the unlearning is forget that if you are not teaching, children are not going to learn. We have this, an age old concept that if I do not teach, the child will not learn, which is not going to be there anymore. Forget about this notion that you used to have. If you remember, around 6, 7 years back, Narendra Modi ji visited Japan and came back and used a very simple slogan: less teaching leads to more learning. Why? Because the child will learn by the virtue of his natural inquisitiveness. So, inquiry based learning is going to dominate, and the teacher need to don the role of a facilitator. Teacher is no more a reservoir of knowledge. In our days, the teacher was a reservoir of knowledge because if we have to learn something, the teacher was the only source. Otherwise, we have to go to a library, bring down piles of book, search, and going to spend a lot of time to learn something. But today, with one click of the mouse, the whole world of knowledge opens up in front of a child. So all that the teacher needs to do is be a facilitator, open all the windows of knowledge that are possible, whether it's from internet, whether it's from the friendly neighborhood, whether it's from an expert, wherever it exists. The teacher needs to open the windows, let the breeze or wind of knowledge come, and the child will be enriched with that flow of knowledge from every direction. And in the high school stage, which is the secondary stage, 4 years of multidisciplinary study is going to be the key. A greater depth, greater critical thinking, greater attention, and to life aspirations. So here we are talking about the 21st century skills to be polished: critical thinking, creative thinking, problem solving, and greater flexibility of subject choice needs to happen. Now, I told you already that greater flexibility of subject choice basically means there will be no strict demarcation as far as streams are concerned. Exposure to more subject and enable greater flexibility, more frequent assessment of modules. So here, instead of one year-end module to be assessed, it can be broken down into semesters. It can be broken down into small examinations which the child can appear without taking the load on the brain of remembering things. So here, the more emphasis is given in testing the real competency and learning of the child instead of remembering of the child. Now we are shifting to a new thing that is ECCE. ECE was a term that is age old. People used to know, or people still know about the ECE very well, what ECE is: early childhood education. But now this early childhood education has shifted into early childhood care and education, the foundation of learning. Now, it is said that out of the 5 crores children in our country who are in this foundational stage, there exists a big gap in learning in these 5 crore children. A big chunk of these 5 crore children do not have the foundational learning skills that is required. So, what is the goal? The goal is ensuring that all children entering grade 1 are school ready by 2030. Now, what does this school ready mean? School ready basically mean the shift from play learning to play based learning. So, a gradual shift from only playing to slowly the subjects and the learning concepts being introduced. Now, we have seen very clearly that there is a gap that exists between KG2 and grade 1. By the time a child reaches a grade 1, he is not able to write properly, read properly, at times solve other, do simple arithmetical calculations. Forget about the calculations, even read the numbers. They are not able to identify numbers. So this gap has to be bridged before 2030. Attain optimal outcome of domain. That is, I've already talked about the physical and motor development, the gross motor and the fine motor development. We have to also focus on socio-economic emotional development of the child. Is the child mixing well with the classmates? Is the child getting enriched with his emotions, laughing when it's needed, crying when it's needed, feeling the feeling of kindness when it is needed? So all these things are checked. Cultural, artistic development, and development of communication, early languages, literacy, and numeracy. So all the foundational learning skills need to be checked in ECCE. So ECC curriculum and pedagogy development will happen, and there will be something called a national curriculum framework for uh, you know early childhood care and education. So it's going to be called as NCPF ECCE, National Curriculum Framework for Early Childhood Care and Education, which is going to be divided into two parts. That is a subpart for 0 to 3 years old, and then from 3 to 8-year old. So specific objectives will be set up, specific guidelines will be given. So next, we have to prepare an initial cadre of high quality ECE teachers. Now, I'm talking to the pre-primary teachers. There is going to be, what is going to be the minimum qualification? The minimum qualification will be 10 plus 2. But you will be allowed to complete a certification course of 6 months or a 1-year diploma program covering early literacy. So this 6-month certification course or early diploma program of 1 year, this need to be completed by all the pre-primary teachers. Introduction of a preparatory class before class 1 for children of age of 5 years. So before they get into the class 1 level, a preparatory class where 3 months of play and 3 months of play-based learning will happen. So in other words, we are preparing our children to shift from the KG2 to formal schooling of class 1. So that preparatory stage where the child needs to be supported will be specially emphasized and dealt with. Attainment of foundational literacy numeracy by grade 3 in mission mode. Now, what does this mission mode mean? The mission mode basically mean the national mission on foundation literacy and numeracy will be set up. You can see this point, the foundation literacy, national mission on foundation literacy and numeracy. So it's given a mission mode to emphasize and ensure that it happens properly. Foundational skills like acquisition of learning skills, reading, writing, arithmetic will be taken into account. So early learning focus on reading, writing, and mathematics or arithmetic. Book promotion will be taken into consideration, where a lot of books will be promoted to the children. Our children are slowly forgetting to read in this age of video games and digital learning. So book promotion has been planned for that. National repository in form of Diksha, where knowledge repositories, online and offline knowledge repositories are going to exist. Libraries will be leveraged so that the children get access to good quality book and good quality book in different languages, even in their regional language or mother tongue. So the foundation literacy mission tells that by 2030, this mission should be, ensuring that every child has attained the minimum foundation literacy and numeracy skills. Now, curtailing the dropouts. Now, I'll share with you a very, bothering figure, a statistical figure that I would like to share with each one of you. This is called gross enrollment ratio. It depends on how many children are enrolling in school at a particular age level. So in the gross enrollment ratio, it has been seen that when we take a survey of children between the age of 6 to 8, or even in the class 6 to 8 level, 90.9% of the children are there. 90.9% is the gross enrollment ratio when it's class 6 to 8, that level. So children are enrolled in school, they are studying till class 6 and 8. But what happens in the 9th and 10th level? In class 9th and 10th level, the 90.9% gets reduced to 79.3%, a drop of almost 11%. Now, why does it happen? Because a lot of children drop out from school. And if we look at the class 11 and 12, that level, what is happening? The ratio becomes 56.5%. Can you believe it? That the students who enrolled themselves, 90.9% in class 6 and 8 has now become 56.5% when it is 11 to 12. So that is a drop in gross enrollment ratio. So the target now is attainment of the gross enrollment ratio of 100% by 2030. That means bring back the children to the education or to the schools, whoever is dropping out. Now, why do the children drop out? They drop out because of financial reasons, they drop out because of safety reasons, they drop out because they are not able to cope up with the studies. So, here three things have been suggested to bring back the children to the schools. The first is ensure that the children are enrolled and attending the school. The second is provide them with proper infrastructure, good teachers, have suitable, and those who are enrolled, make sure that they are having, this given this backup from the school, that they are able to cope up with the ones who are already in that class. The ones who are dropping out, if they are coming back to school again, special support needs to be given to them. And those who are already in the school, precaution has to be taken that they do not drop out. So to prevent the dropout, good infrastructure, good teacher, tracking of the students at different levels is very, very important. Community participation, that means local uh, bodies which are philanthropic bodies, NGOs, these bodies have a role to play, where they will be tracking the children who have shifted from schools and not in or not studying anymore, and bring them back to school again. Now, those who are not able to do and attend the physical school, it's also talking about let them still learn with the help of open and distance learning mode. NIOS, the National Institute of Open Schooling, is a very important tool or an institution that we have in our hands, so that the children who are not able to come to physical school can still continue with the help of NIOS. So the whole idea is bring children back to the schools. Highlights of pedagogical structure. We have already talked about competency based education, where the modules will be prepared based on the competencies of the child, not focus on the rote to learning. Outcome based learning, objective based learning will be happening. Second is integration of subjects. We have already spoken about that as well. Art integration and you know sport integration. Integration between different subjects can also happen. Maths integrated with social science, science, and so on. Development of a scientific temper of the child is needed. Now, let me tell you this. Before I tell you this, you will not be able to understand why so many things are talked about in the competency, or talked about competency as such. I'll share for next 4 to 5 minutes something very, very important. Now, the question is, what type of jobs will exist for our children in the 21st century? Now, if you think, when I was a student in class 10th, that was way back in 1990, during those days, if anyone would have said a web designer, I would not have understood what the person is talking about except a spider, because in those days only spiders designed webs. But 20 years or 30 years down the line, web designing is a very sought after profession. So understand these things, teachers, that 20 years or 30 years from now, there are professions which are going to exist which do not exist today. Now, is this what I am saying? The answer is no. This is being predicted by something called trend analyzers. These trend analyzers are futurists. They predict how the future is going to be like as far as professional sphere is concerned. So these futurists, they are predicting. These are global heads of, and in terms of future prediction, these people are predicting that 85% of the professions that will exist in the 21st century, that is the later part of the 21st century, do not exist today. And 65% of the children who are in preschool now will work in jobs that do not exist. So if they are going to work in jobs that are not existing right now, what we are preparing the children for? If the child is good in maths, engineer, good in bio, doctor, good in social studies, or some commerce subject, chartered accountant, lawyer, these are the few careers we have in our minds, and we are pushing all the children only through those narrow goalposts. This is something that is going to have devastating consequences. Why? Because the jobs are really going to dry up. With the machines coming over, the few jobs are going to really disappear forever. Now, what are the jobs that are not going to be there at all in the 21st century? Understand this. The first thing that they're telling is the jobs which are repetitive and which are, routine and repetitive jobs are not going to be there anymore. We do not need human beings to do repetitive work, routine work. Machines can do that. So, what type of jobs will exist in the 21st century? It is very clearly told now by all the global developed nations, the futurists, that three areas robots cannot replace human beings. The first one is as far as creativity and innovation is concerned. Though there are robots which are drawing pictures and writing poems, but their creativity is nowhere near, let's say, a Wordsworth, Keats, or Shelley, or even, let's say, today's new Vikram Seth. So keep that in mind that creativity is there to stay. So that is the reason why so much emphasis is given on creativity in this education policy. The second thing is innovation will create new jobs. So when new jobs will be created, employment will be generated. So this is what is the reason innovation is so much emphasized on. The second thing, the second type of jobs that are going to stay are the ones which relate to human touch, human to human interaction. For example, if Ratan Tata is going to sign a memorandum of agreement with Mukesh Ambani, they will not be sending across two robots that will come and meet each other, analyze and scan the documents and sign on behalf of the company. There, a real human being is going to go talk, understand what the other person is telling, and then sign the document. The or let's say a nurse. If you have a severe stomach ache, you're admitted in a hospital, a robot nurse comes to you and tells, do not worry, I'll take care of you, I'll take care of your stomach ache. You will not be happy, right? You'll say, get lost from here, I want someone to help me, a real human being. So anything that has to do with real human touch, those things are going to prevail. Those jobs are going to exist. So that is the reason why we are giving so much emphasis on human qualities to be developed in the children. Need not be made into machines. Human qualities of empathy, sympathy, care, communication, collaboration, all these things cannot be done by machines. It can be done only by humans, and these jobs are going to be immune from machines. And the third type of jobs which are going to be immune from machines are emergency jobs, like, let's say, electricians, plumbers. So you can understand now with the this thing in background that all these jobs which are going to be immune from machine, we need to develop our children for that. So development of the scientific temper is because of that only. No silos among subjects of learning. We have already spoken about that. No compartmenting of commerce, science, and arts. Emphasizing on digital literacy. You know it now very well. What do we mean by digital literacy and why is it needed? Because we are needed, humans are also needed to control the machines, the computers. So here, digital literacy will be taking a very important point. Promotion of multilingual teaching. India has been a state of, different languages. So here, multilingualism is to be promoted in order to promote nationalism. 21st century skills in the classroom. Now, these things, collaboration, digital literacy, problem solving, communication, critical thinking, creativity, health and fitness, social responsibility, ethics, scientific temper, all these things are to be promoted in a classroom. And these things, if you promote in a classroom as a teacher, you are getting your child ready for the 21st century. If you're only reading and sticking to the textbook, 21st century skills will not be developed in the child. Introduction to contemporary subjects like artificial intelligence. Python as a subject has already been introduced. Talking about holistic health, data science, organic living, design thinking, and machine learning. So these are going to be diverse or different wings of knowledge that are going to open up new avenues. So children need to be updated with these streams of knowledge. And then any stream that they prefer, they can go further deep into it. Year-long course during grade 6 to 8. Now, grade 6 to 8, it's being told that introduce the children to some sort of vocational education, carpentry, electric work. And why electric work? I just told you the reason, right? 21st century is going to have a lot of jobs which are related to emergency. Electrician are needed, plumbers are needed, carpenters are needed, metalwork is needed. All these different vocations are needed. So children need to be taught those things as well. And what type of vocal skills or vocational skills are supposed to be taught? This depends on the local state. For example, if you're located in Kolhapur, the art of Kolhapuri chappal manufacturing should be definitely learned by the children. If you're located somewhere in Mysore, how to prepare a Mysore pak should be learned, and similar things. So whatever is the key feature of that area or key art of the area, that should not become extinct. The children should be trained in that. Now, mathematics and computational thinking, another very important concept which the new education policy talks about. Computational thinking comes before coding. A lot of companies are emphasizing that coding is very important. Yes, coding is important. It has been asked to introduce coding from grade 6 to 8, but without computational thinking, which comprises of problem disintegration, pattern recognition, abstraction, and algorithm. These are the components of computational thinking. If you're interested, COE Pune has a module of that. I have a module called Decoding the Coding of NEP. I would recommend you enroll for that particular training. And in that program, I have discussed at length what is computational thinking and how we can bring it in the classrooms. So I would advise each school to understand what computational thinking is. And just for your info, computational thinking has nothing to do with computers. Even a sports teacher, a music teacher can teach computational thinking because it's nothing to teach. It's a practice. It's the way people or children should start thinking. So coding is going to be introduced. But again, as I said, coding is only a language the child is learning to communicate with the computer. But the child needs to design solutions. Innovations are needed. Solutions to help people are needed. That can only happen with computational thinking. Emphasis on vocational education is being talked about. I already spoke about that. Grade 6 to 8, 10 bagless days will be there. And by 2025, at least 50% of the learners shall have exposure to vocational education. So the number is very less now. So we are talking about at least 50% of the learners go into vocational education by 2025. It's almost half right now, 25%. So elevated to 50% level. Knowledge of India, we cannot just stop talking about it. India has been a country, an early civilization, and people and scholars have come from different parts of the world to learn from India. And India had always been a hub of knowledge. So, understanding that, children need to understand the real value of being an Indian, the Indian systems of learning. And here, the knowledge of our country will make the child aware that, we have every reason to feel proud. And the Western people have come across and imitated us. We should not imitate what's happening in the Western world. So we have slowly started defining our literacy in terms of Western thought process. If a person does not know English, we do not consider that person as a literate person in today's world, which is a completely wrong notion. Literacy has nothing to do with a language, and that to a foreign language. So understand this thing very clearly, that being Indian by heart, appreciating the values of being an Indian, knowing the different diversity and of culture and language, and appreciating those things will make us by heart Indians, and then we can work as a unified nation. Health education is to be emphasized. Basic training in health, including preventive health, mental health well-being, nutrition. So it's nothing but prevention is better than cure. If we need to have a generation of healthy citizens, we need to promote health. Otherwise, healthy citizenship will not exist. Health is not only in terms of mental health, but emotional health, social health, spiritual health. All these healths are to be emphasized, and that can happen at school level. So the children need to be made aware the different dimensions of health in form of physical health, mental health, social health, and so on. And personal hygiene, the first aid, all these things need to be taught to the children, along with the detrimental and damaging effects of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. There are almost 10 to 15% of the children who are addicted to different forms of addiction, and their healths are deteriorating because of that. So this is a very big concern we need to address. Leveraging the power of multilingualism and language learning. So mother tongue, as we understand this very clearly, that we understand better in mother tongue. So if, for example, your mother tongue is Marathi, if something is explained to you in Marathi, you will understand better. So does every child. Now, what happens is, if the child is weak in a foreign language, that's English, the child is, is not able to comprehend what is being asked in a mathematics problem or a social studies question. So being weak in English makes the child weak in maths and also weak in social studies, which should not happen. So here, teach the child in the mother tongue, allow the child to communicate in mother tongue or in languages of India, so that the child can learn better. And it has been seen that all those countries which were not British colonies, they are sticking to the mother tongue and progressing phenomenally. China is one example, France is an example. These countries do not speak English as a first language or communication language, but they are still developing. So they are giving value to their mother tongue. So if we are in Maharashtra, we need to value the mother tongue of the local people, right? And they need to understand and learn in their mother tongue. So national curriculum framework for school education will be designed. So this is just a policy, and the policy will be implemented through the NCF. So the NCF for school education will be published within a few days or months time. And once the policy is the framework is out, we can follow what the framework is telling and implement it at the school level. I have been getting so many questions that when is this starting? The answer is wait for the NCF SE. It will tell you in a phase-wise manner when this is all going to start and which year which thing will happen. So the education is like a big ship. It takes time to turn. So do not expect everything that is being told in the policy will be implemented in 2021 or 22. So whatever is the priority, whatever it takes to make the ground ready will be changed first, and gradual shift by 2030 or 2040, everything will be fitting into specific block holes. Transforming assessment for school development. So aim of the assessment should be learning to learn and assessment for learning. So assessment to help learning is the key. Not to check what the child does not know, but to check what the child knows. So that should be the ultimate objective of assessment. Assessment will be taken in grade 3, grade 5, grade 8, grade 10, and grade 12. Now, many of you have thought that board exam is going to stop existing. It's nothing like that. The board exam is going to be there, only the different form it will be like. The emphasis will not be on one single exam. It can be, sort of, it is being already given an example that two different exams might happen uh, at the board level. One is the normal one and one for improvement of the score. The second is during that level, semester pattern of learning can happen. That's something that the child learns in ninth can be completed in class 10th and semester pattern as well. So all these are, loose ends or open ends, I would say, that have been left. And the national curriculum framework will define exactly how this is going to work out. So board exams are going to be there, only the form is going to be changed. A 360-degree report card is going to be talked about right now. Now, what does that mean? It means that as long as we have a report card which talks about only maths, English, and science score, it's not going to progress. The policy is not going to work. Why? Because the shift is now going to happen from scores in the examination to what the child knows, what the child is good at. So a comprehensive 360-degree report card where a parent, when comes to the school to talk with the teacher will talk not like your child has failed in maths or not doing good in English. The teacher will rather start the communication like this, that Mr. Joseph, or let's say Mr. Tiwari or Mr. Marathe, your child is an excellent communicator. He makes friends real quick. And I can tell you that this skill of his will lead him to a leadership position in an organization. And probably, I think, if he goes into the marketing domain, he will be doing exceedingly well. So when that type of feedback is given to the child parent from early age, let's say from class 6, 7, the parents slowly get tuned that, my child can do well in a specific profession. So this is something very, very important to understand. So holistic report card will make that happen. Take the focus away from marks to something that the child really does nicely. Reading regarding guidelines of assessment. Guidelines will be prepared by NCRT in consultation with major stakeholders. There will be a National Assessment Center for School Education, which will be talking about the assessment in schools. And this will be, done by 2022-23. We are also talking about a form of assessment where regarding new assessment patterns and latest researches will be included. promoting collaboration between school boards to become instrument for sharing the best practices. So all these things are going to happen under National Assessment Center for School Education. Bodies like Parak will be formed, which will be taking into account, or they will be playing key role in the assessment of the child. So Parak is something that is going to be very, very important. Next, teachers education. Understand this thing, teachers. As far as B.Ed is concerned, teacher by choice, 4-year integrated B.Ed will be, by 2030, that this will exist. And 2-year B.Ed for those who have done 3 years bachelor's program, they can do 2 years B.Ed degree. And those who have done 4 years multidisciplinary bachelor's program, they can go for 1-year B.Ed program. So B.Ed programs will be compulsory educational qualification for teachers and will exist in 3 different forms: 4 years integrated B.Ed, 2 years B.Ed, where the person has already done graduation and then going to do B.Ed, and 1-year B.Ed for those who have done multidisciplinary bachelor's degree. Teachers education by NEP is talking about National Professional Standard for Teachers by 2022 will be published, where certain standard of professionalism, competency of the teacher will be talked about, and the teachers need to match those. Teachers eligibility test will be strengthened. Sharing of teachers across schools and complexes of schools will be done, and it's talking about B.Ed through also online and distance mode. The policy talks about supporting the teachers at every level of preparation, recruitment, inside the classroom, and professional development. So phase-wise, the teachers are going to be, different stage-wise, the teachers are going to be supported by the policy at different levels. Recruitment will even happen with the help of artificial intelligence equipment, and even the transfers of the teachers of government schools will happen using technology. Continuous professional development. This policy talks about 50 hours that we know of, the CPD has to happen. So how to support the gifted children, and specialization is being talked about by this policy. Inclusion and equity as a cornerstone should be taught to the teachers. Workshop and training programs for development of school leaders and principals will be conducted. Anganwadi workers, teachers trained in early literacy will be done. Equitable and inclusion education, I already talked about that, include different genders and different people of socioeconomic background. It is said very clearly that inclusive, good quality education is a foundation for dynamic, equitable societies. Focus on SEDGs, socioeconomic disadvantages group. What are those? Gender identities like female and the transgender, socio-cultural identities like scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBC, geographical identities like people from aspirational districts, disabilities like dyslexia, dyscalculia, Down syndrome. All these things are to be taken into account. And socioeconomic conditions like children of migrant laborers, human trafficking, and orphans. So they will be supported financially with the help of a financial portal. Scholarships. We are talking about inclusive education, where gender inclusion fund and a lot of other benefits are to be given to the child. And this can be done with the help of another program of COE, which is inclusion and inclusive strategies. Those schools who have not done that program of COE, inclusion and inclusive strategies, I would strongly recommend, please, in your district training calendars, put that. Put inclusion and inclusive strategies, because that will help you to understand what inclusion is all about. Next, school complexes are being talked about. The Sahodaya, the hubs of learning, we all know a lot of is happening right now under the guidance of Tarun Kumar sir. The hub is going to be really active now, and these activities will lead to sharing of resources, and a collaborative framework will be set up, and every school will develop and progress together. As the Sahodaya itself means rising together, so the hubs of learning will make it happen. Next, accreditation in terms of school quality assessment accreditation framework. So some sort of quality check will exist, and this is called accreditation, and details of that will be published by the Central Board of Secondary Education, and the curriculum framework will talk about it. So matching to specific requirements in terms of safety, teacher qualification, infrastructure, all these things are going to be checked, and every school needs to match a particular level. Transforming assessment and examination, we have talked in detail about this. No need to go in deep into this. This PPT has been sent across to all schools. Go through these small pieces of uh, information. It will help you to understand what is in the plan. But just to understand in a nutshell, we are going to competency-based assessment system. 50 hours of mandatory CPD along with the COE norm of annual, triennial, and in-house training will make that happen. So minimum number of training hours need to be really taken seriously, should not be ignored. Every school management should be sensitized about the value of CPD and training programs. Curriculum initiatives like art and sport integration, principals as pedagogical leaders, implementation of experiential learning, mathematics, Hindi, English at 2 levels. Sanskrit also will be in 2 levels. So 2 level of subjects will be introduced, the basic and the standard one. Introduction of 9 vocational courses of 12-hour duration for class 6 to 8 in 2020. So this, see, it's already there. 9 vocational courses are already there. The school leaders need to go into the website of CBSE, see and read about the vocational educations and opt for those at the school level. Because you know now very well, grade 6 to 8 need to have vocational education and 10 bagless days. Ensuring competency-based education in schools, mandatory adoption of learning outcomes. So learning objective-based education, critical and creative thinking. I already told you why is it needed to form, to be ready for the 21st century. Creativity and critical thinking will be important. Mandatory online training programs and experiential learning, competency-based education. These 2 modules of Diksha portal needs to be completed. Development of resource material and handbook has to be done at different levels, and it's already going on. A lot of work is going on. Handbooks, around 36 handbooks are already there in CBSE website. Download those and keep it in your library. One probably in the library, and one in the a place where everyone can access it. All the teachers can access it. So all these handbooks are going to be really helpful. Student enrichment activities. There are a lot of programs CBSE takes from time to time in terms of Aryabhatta Ganit Challenge, Heritage India Quiz, CBSE Science Challenge. A lot of activities are there. These activities will not only help the child to develop 21st century skills, but also make them feel proud as Indians. So I would recommend the schools to take this competition sincerely and participate in that. You must have got recently a mail from Regional Office Pune, which is talking about Pariksha Pe Charcha and an essay competition. Please check out that mail and ensure maximum participation of students and parents and teachers from our region as well. Expectation from the school is very simple. Focus on learning objectives, stress on foundational skill and literacy and numeracy, bring changes in the classroom in teaching, alignment with the NEP. We already talked about that at length. Bring challenges in the assessment pattern, that is competency-based assessment. Forget about rote learning. Remove separation between subjects and disciplines. So nothing called co-scholastic, art, science, commerce will be there. Vocational training to students to be given. Enable access and retention of the children. Bring out the children, bring the children back to schools from getting dropped out. There are these tribal children who cannot, correlate with the curriculum. Make sure that education is happening inside the classroom to keep these children interested. So the slow learners, make sure that you do something to keep them interested and in the schools. So tracking of these children, monitoring of these children is very important. Self-audit of the schools through the SQAAF, that is School Quality Assurance and Accreditation Framework. So quality check needs to happen. So the focus should be now not only on the quantity, but also on the quality. And since the quantity is getting less in terms of curriculum, the more emphasis on quality can easily be done. Provide enabling resources both to students and teachers, and recruiting of qualified teachers as per the NCT regulations. Capacity building at all level, we have discussed immensely about it. The COE training, the annual training, trial training, Diksha, Swayam, Nishtha, go for these trainings. Training is never a waste of time. Training always enriches you and helps you to meet the target. So do not approach the training with the mindset of only meeting the compulsory hours, but go beyond that to ensure that we give the right education to our children. Engage with the parents and community with a positive environment. So let the parents come and be a part of the mainframe schooling in terms of parent-teacher meeting, specialists, parents like filmmakers, sports person, doctors being called to schools to deliver lectures, educate the parents about how to identify adolescent issues, educate the parents and sensitize the parents how to look at a child's performance and defining or redefining success. We are very soon going to organize a program only for the parents, so keep that in mind, that this parents program needs to be publicized and told to all parents to participate, so that they learn, that they know what is expected from them in this policy. So with this, we come to the end of the policy. Just like to highlight one very, very important thing. This policy is just not a policy which is taking into account the 21st century job opportunities. It is talking about creating a society which is vibrant, which is full of different dynamics, a society which is going to be a happy place to live in. People can only be happy when they contribute substantially to the development of their own selves and for the development of the entire society. So with the skill sets of creative thinking, critical thinking, 21st century skills, competency-based education, foundation literacy and numeracy, bringing children back to school, redesigning of the higher education, competitive exam, getting away and doing away with the culture of coaching and coaching classes. This policy is all set to take India to a new height, to give India the same position that India had in the yesteryears. But the policy implementation will depend on you and me and the entire population. So I would recommend each one of you go through the policy. Whatever is difficult for you to understand, feel free to contact COE. We are conducting multiple programs for you, and any help needed at any level, the Center of Excellence under the leadership of Tarun Kumar sir is going to be there for you and for each one of you. So feel free to approach us. So that's all from my side, and thank you so much. I understand I have exceeded by 17 minutes, but that was necessary for you to understand the entire policy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Datta. And very rightly said that the implementation of this document depends on us, on teachers. So, very nicely presented the whole document, such a huge document in such a short time. So, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Mr. Tarun, for being here all through. And the link for the MCQs will be opened now, and it will remain open till 9 p.m. today for the teachers. So they are requested to attempt that. So, Mr. Tarun, you want to say something?
No. Thank you very much for arranging this wonderful. And Dr. Swarup Dutta, thanks a lot giving a very wonderful insight for the program. And thank you for all the teachers who participated such in large number in this event. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.